Let's talk about the key players here. What you end up with are two Windows Server 19 hosts, and they are on essentially different sides of the world, organizationally speaking, maybe even geographically. I'm not sure. Different IPs, different organizations, different people behind the helm here. These are distinct, different servers, and they belong to distinct, different organizations. And we found an instance of some evil, the source of which is, somewhere out there, but the destination of which is the first Windows server in our attack chain. This is for a pharmaceutical organization, and we have an instance of ScreenConnect, which we will call instance A, and the user that is using this ScreenConnect instance is redacted1, right? So you can imagine that's just, a.user at whatever. What ends up happening is that after a little bit of enumeration, looking around, and some time spent on the endpoint, after this first instance A ScreenConnect, we have a second ScreenConnect installer downloaded, executed, and a second ScreenConnect instance is opened up on this same server. This is now ScreenConnect instance B in the same organization, same Windows server, this pharmaceutical organization, but we've got a different user in this case. So ScreenConnect A grabs a new ScreenConnect installer, installs it on the endpoint. ScreenConnect B connects in with a different user. All right, so these are two distinct users at this point. Lo and behold, we see, and this kind of goes back to what Max was talking about, this kind of like, check the parents and check the children of your processes. We see PowerShell commands running from ScreenConnect instance B. And an additional a.msi file by this PowerShell command is downloaded into the documents section.
Yeah, quick note right there. If you want to get started in threat hunting and, maybe you're not super experienced or just kind of want a good fun time over the weekend, just go look in your environment to see if you can find single character executable files, like a.msi,
Yeah.
a.exe, 1.exe. You start there, you will find some interesting things if you have enough hosts. So it's a dead giveaway that probably something not legitimate going on here.
Yeah, the foo.msi bar.exe. So I just moved my camera out of the way so everybody can see clearly, but we've got a PowerShell command. This is basically a very simple PowerShell download cradle, and that's pulling a.msi out of this random IP address and bringing it into the documents folder, right? Nice and easy, writable, clean place to drop something that you want to install. And boom, looking for this, lo and behold, get Max out of the way there to show the KEKW meme in the corner. Lo and behold, boom, we've got ScreenConnect instance C. I do not remember if this was the same or a different user in this case. It's actually not super pertinent to the rest of the attack chain. But all right, let's recap. We've got count them, 3 ScreenConnect instances going to the same Windows Server 2019 host. And like this is the point where the saxophone starts playing and this starts to become kind of hilarious. It's not hilarious that a cyber attack happened. I want to make that very clear. But if you're gonna have fun with this stuff, I mean, you gotta laugh or else you cry. So following the download and execution of ScreenConnect instance C, we have yet another PowerShell cradle. And this time we set up another very simple kind of download PowerShell cradle here to grab test.xml from this remote endpoint. I also love that it's HTTP, plain text, but then uses port 443 as the actual port for the socket. So congratulations, guys. You fooled us there because we were looking for HTTPS and you clearly circumvented our detection there. But in any case, actually, Max, I'll ask you, when you see something like test.xml written into the environment, what are you like, where do you go first? I have an answer to this because I've done this about 1,000 times, but what is your immediate thought when you see something like an XML file?
Well, I mean, for me, first thing I want to comment on is the whole HTTP thing. That might sound really silly, but years of, especially when network sensors were a lot more popular before we had EDR, a lot of network sensors simply did not look at traffic over 443 because most of it was encrypted and it was a massive processing load to just look at traffic that you couldn't see anyway. So for a long time there, doing something as simple as like switching to port 443, even though it's all plain text, would work perfectly fine.
Hey,
Um,
fair point.
so, the weird things. I don't think the attackers are really thinking at that level a lot of
Yeah.
times. I think a lot of times it's just simplicity of getting your server up, but it did work. For me, a lot of times, honestly, it's just like, can I acquire this file? Can I see if is it a config for something? Is it setting something up? Can I get some details about what the attacker is trying to do around here? I mean, uh, attackers like things simple as well.
Mhm.
They're doing a lot of things from command line. They don't want to be in a bunch of directories configuring things once they start. They kind of have a playbook. And so, there's usually one or two config files. Maybe there's a downloader, and you can kind of get the full story of what this attacker is doing right out the gate, simply looking at this stuff. But yeah, what are you thinking?
So check this out. Next thing you see, and remember again for the kind of like tradecraft, threat hunting, detection, and deterrence here. This is all coming out of the ScreenConnect instances. That executable, the child arguments and processes coming out of that look like PowerShell running a download cradle for this XML file, and then we'll see something like the ms build command, right? And so if we put two and two together, this is something that I used to do a lot is an ms build file. If you did not know this, you can specify in XML a set of C# usually is how I used to do it, that you can pass to the .NET Framework ms build binary. And what this does is it reads in some headers and then looks at, you can write the code in the body of the XML, and it looks ugly as heck, but you can structure the code in the body to do some kind of nefarious activity. And when you pass it over to ms build then executes this code. And this is a classic living off the land binary attack, because ms build, if the .NET Framework is installed on the endpoint, most of the time it is, sometimes it's not, the ms build binary is going to be there waiting and ready, and all you have to do is pass it this XML file with some code inside. It will compile and execute it right
Yeah.
there for you.
And, I know where you're kind of trying to take it, right? Is there are a lot of security appliances on the market. There's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of prevention going on. Techniques like this allow the attacker to get their malware, get their evil files onto disk and run without having to worry about, hey, just packaging up an exe file and then trying to get someone to download it, right? Chrome could stop it. You might have AV that's kind of looking at some of these common things. These are just methods and tools for the attacker to have an easier time getting their malware to actually get on the system and running without having to get their files nuked and in some quarantine that they have to deal with.
Yep. Unfortunately, that was not the case, because this ms build file tried to do a thread injection of Meterpreter. This is like a very naive kind of process injector. I don't remember if it was a remote process or if it was its own process, but it basically opened up a handle to either itself or a remote process. It allocated a section of memory as read write executable. It wrote some shell code or something, and boom, we tried to get a Meterpreter session. I believe if you read the blog post, it said the first time they tried to do this, it failed, but then it succeeded subsequently. But yes, this is basically a way to live off the land and try to get your Meterpreter session running on the endpoint. So interesting combination here of ScreenConnect, rat abuse, and also leading into, I'm careful to not call Metasploit a true C2. I think there's a very big distinction there, but get like a second stage exploitation payload running. So Meterpreter, of course, is just a nice fancy little shell handler that's built into the Metasploit framework. So let's recap for a moment here. We've got ScreenConnect instance A from redacted user 1. We've got ScreenConnect instance B, redacted user 2. We implicitly here have another ScreenConnect that I'm not showing representing on here because the slide would have gotten way too busy. The most shocking development of this entire ordeal here is this next slide that I'm about to show you. Oh my goodness. So this is what clued us in, because before this part of the attack chain, this was all normal. Like, this was like, okay, we've seen this before. This is a classic playbook. But this right here was what really tipped us off that maybe something else more nefarious was going on. And so I'm going to move my face out of the way just so everybody can see a little bit better. So we've got a second Windows Server 2019, the one that was on the other side of the world, remember? And it belongs to like a distinct medical organization. And we've got the instance of ScreenConnect instance B with redacted user number 2 connecting to this random other organization on the other side of the world. And so we never got, I don't think we ever drew a definitive conclusion here, but we suspected there was some kind of upstream organization compromise, but we don't have anything to really like back that up or prove it. But what we saw here is a splitting attack chain. and the same user identity used in two distinct organization ScreenConnect RMM rat attacks.
Yeah.
That's pretty
That's
scary.
why I love the people who work here at Huntress because, I wish I could say it was some super awesome automated system. Literally just our people on the ground, our researchers that we have were able to put two and two together and understand, hey, we've seen similar tactics across multiple different unrelated customer environments. And so I think your next two slides kind of comment on this, but this is a great slide to have up while we talk about it. Robin just kind of mentioned it in the chat, supply chain exploit. Not quite like what you'd think of a normal supply chain, but very similar concept. So on that first computer up there with the interpreter, bang on it right there, we had a pharmacy get hit with an attack and some pre-ransomware type activity by the threat actor. And then we saw a hospital with an endpoint get very similar activity on it. And when we dug into that hospital, we realized that system is inside the pharmacy at that hospital. And so when we started pairing this stuff together, we get super sketched out anytime you have an industry link, right? They're both pharmaceutical, they're both pharmacies. It's healthcare, same TTPs. And what was really scary was, and this is the big kicker, the ScreenConnect instance was not a typical cloud-hosted ScreenConnect instance. It was actually a on-prem ScreenConnect that was super out of date, hosted on the internet. And we didn't get to completely confirm with the upstream, but it was a pharmaceutical software vendor. So this pharmacy software vendor was using ScreenConnect for their support. So if a pharmacist called in and was like, hey, I can't get the tool to work, or like I'm troubleshooting this bug and can you help me get it up and running? The support people for that pharmaceutical software company would ScreenConnect in and grab some logs and help out. Well, some attacker got access to that ScreenConnect instance and started using it to get access into pharmacies and hospitals around the country. And we don't know to what scale or how many, but our feeling is always, if we're seeing it at two pharmacies with the view that we have as Huntress, globally, that gets kind of scary. It gets really scary, actually. And so we actually did some outreach to the affected pharmaceutical company. We gave them all kinds of information, the tactics, the TTPs. I think they started remediating. We didn't work with them directly or anything like that, but really stands out when you see an upstream vendor being used in a supply chain attack kind of way to gain access to many. And it's very similar in the MSP space. Attackers like to go after an MSP because it's a one-to-many relationship, where if you can get the keys to that kingdom, you now have many, many victims that you have direct access to that you didn't have to go and fish or find external exploits. You can kind of just go. So it was a really scary one, especially with these being in hospitals.
TLDR on Bitter Pill is that we just kind of mentioned this, we've got remarkably similar tradecraft on both servers, but the most concerning part of this was that there might have been some kind of upstream identity compromise, right? And so, we've got like a perfect storm here. Combine some kind of upstream identity compromise with the fact that RMMs and rats are in use as legitimate software in the environment. You've got a recipe for really insidious, really tricky detection and response.